Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating Podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway, and in this episode, I'll be covering the men's event from the 2024 NHK Trophy. This event was won by Yuma Kageyama of Japan. He won both segments of the competition and scored over 300 points in this competition, and that was with him being less than perfect in the free skate. I'll talk about the short program first. He's using a cover of Sound of Silence. The first part is a guitar solo, I believe. He has really great jumps with very high GOE. The way he paces his program is just really nice. He's got great connecting steps. In his triple axel, it's like a little mini step sequence, and I love the ending. Big fan of this program. In his free skate, he started off with a really hard fall on the quad flip. That was really the only problem in the program. It's just a really well composed program. His last jumping pass was actually a triple flip, triple loop combo, and I don't recall him doing that in the past. Perhaps I'm just misremembering, but I thought that was really cool, especially that late in the program. The interesting thing to note, again, for some of you that don't tune in to some of the challengers, Elia actually beat Yuma on PCS at Lombardia, which is a bit controversial. Now, Elia was cleaner technically than Yuma was, which is not a license to give higher PCS. But when I see this program performed by Yuma so well, it just brings my mind back to that. And I think, really? But I felt like Yuma did have so much better command of this program than what he had when I saw it at Lombardia. So I don't know when they will meet again that we'll see quite that same fate, but who knows? It's a really fantastic competition for Yuma, and like I said, he's got some actual places to improve. Second place here was Daniel Grassel of Italy. So let's just take a moment and talk about Daniel a little bit. He, of course, was MIA from the Grand Prix last season. He withdrew from both of his Grand Prix. We've never really gotten any resolution to his missed drug test. So for those of you that are unaware or maybe have forgotten, Daniel Grassel in the 2022-23 season made a couple of coaching changes, and the most notable one was he ended up at Iteri Tuberizzi's camp, which was quite shocking to a lot of people and definitely did not win him a lot of favors with skating fans because basically, Itteri's name has been mud for quite some time. That move did not pay off for him as he ended up missing, I believe, 3 drug tests. And so the thought was that he was going to get suspended. Now, he was never formally suspended. With Italian privacy laws, no one really knows exactly what transpired. So he is back, and obviously with a different coaching team than before. I think there's still a lot of dislike that I have seen in social media for Daniel because of the decision to go to Iteri. But I do think that we can applaud him for leaving Iteri. And while he had very nice things to say about her when he was at the camp, we haven't heard really him say anything about it since then. So hopefully we can start to move on from that sort of dislike and frustration with Daniel from some, what I think is fair to say, poor decisions that were made. And hopefully we've turned over a new leaf in terms of that. I definitely was not expecting him to end up with a silver medal here, but he had a very good competition. In the short program, I gotta say, I forgot that he had that ugly leg wrap in his jumps. It's so distracting at times. But in the short program, he did a very nice quad loop and a triple lutz, triple toe, and a triple axel. Did very well. Found himself in 5th after the short program, but placements 3 through 7 were all very close together. So he was definitely within striking distance of a podium slot. And then in the long program, had a really big program planned and landed basically everything. Quad lutz, quad loop, quad salchow. Triple axel, triple toe, triple axle, double axle, double axle late in the program, and a triple Lutz, triple toe late in the program. Now, I am not the rotation police, but he did get an undercall on his quad loop in the short program that he did not get in the free skate. I saw a lot of people online very frustrated about lack of calls. Jackie Wong was definitely one that was sort of banging the drum about lack of calls for him also. Sometimes it comes down to camera angles, and sometimes skaters are very strategic about where they will do jumps on the ice to sort of camouflage some of those things. Sometimes you have biased tech callers. I don't know what the issue was here. Like I said, I'm definitely not the rotation police. Sometimes I will look at jumps in slow motion, see which way their skate was turning and all that. But I also try not to get into the weeds of that too much because I feel like it starts to take away a little bit from my enjoyment of skating when I get real into the weeds with that type of a thing. So I'm more interested to see what it looks like in his second Grand Prix, if he has similar jumps that are or are not called. Then I think we can get a little bit better gauge. So I don't know if they should have been calls on the quarter unders. I couldn't tell you. But here they were called clean, and he moved all the way up to second place. Actually found the free skate to be rather interesting. He's skating to a lot of different pieces of music, from Billy Elliot the musical, from Billy Elliot Born to Boogie by Elton John. He ends with some music from Swan Lake from the Black Swan soundtrack. So it's very interesting. He has a very muted costume, just like a white shirt and black pants. There's a little spot in the middle. I think that's the Arabesque #1 by Claude Debussy, where it's just like some audio of like tendu and some ballet moves. So he's clearly trying to play a character. Would like to see this program again to get a little bit more of a general feel from it, but I didn't hate it. So, and I don't have an issue with Daniel Grassel, the skater, right now. Hopefully he's learned from some of his past mistakes. In third place was Tetsuya Tsuboi from Japan, and he had basically the whole competition of his life in the short program. Was the best short program of his career. Quad Salchow, really great looking triple axel. I thought he really rode the home crowd very well in the second half of his short program. His free skate, skating to Pagliacci, which is a piece of music that I'm just always a sucker for. Now, he is no Daisuke Takahashi, who to me has the best Pagliacci program that we've seen. But he skated 2 clean quad salchows here. He matched really his best performance that he had before this, which was Grand Prix Espa 2 years ago. And he needed to skate well here to stay ahead of Andrew Torgashev, who went before him and skated really well. The presentation and interpretation are definitely not there. I thought the 77 points that he got in PCS was probably a little generous, but he maybe got a little home cooking, but either said he was pretty firmly into third place and had, like I said, the competition of his life to get onto the podium. And he was so happy in both segments, just so incredibly happy, which I love to see. In fourth place here was Andrew Torgashev of the US. Going back to back, he was a late last-minute replacement in this event, replacing Steven Gogolev of Canada. In the short program, he turned out of his triple before his triple toe in his combo, so that cost him some points, but he also got a little bit of negative GOE on it last week. So he actually scored 3 points better here than he did in France and had a brand new personal best in the short program. In the long program, thought that was the best quad toe I'd ever seen him do. Just smooth, nice running edge, really good GOE on it. The triple axel he did in the second half was just so good. It was better than the first one that he did. He has two triple triples in his second half. Frankly, it was just incredible performance for him. The difference between him being fourth and getting another bronze here was actually two undercalls. So that quad toe that I thought he did so well, he got an undercall, and the first triple axel, he got an undercall as well. Chris Hallworth, who's doing the commentary on this Grand Prix, thought that it was a little harsh, that maybe a Q, he thought an under was a bit harsh. Even with that, it was a personal best, and he was pumped after his free skate, and it was 10 points better than last week. He got over 80 points in program components, which 3 points higher than what he got last week. Also, after he finished skating, had this bro hug with Brandon Frazier, who was in the kiss and cry with him again this week. And Brandon told him that was the best I've ever seen you do, dude. I was like, oh. Anyway, they're so fun together. But he was really close to getting a medal for a second time. A couple of calls there was the difference for him, but still, really two fantastic back-to-back performances from him, and better than what we've seen any of the other American men do, Jason Brown included. So I think that he is well on his way for that third spot. Now, if he goes and implodes at nationals, it's not going to help his cause. But if he can bring what he has brought here to nationals, he could even get a silver. Who knows? I'm excited, but like I told some of my listeners on Twitter, keep my expectations low so that I'm not disappointed, and also so I don't jinx him. In fifth place here was Matteo Rizzo of Italy. In his short program, he's repeating his 2 Men in Love short program that he debuted at Europeans in January. Does the quad loop here. Didn't go well, which is pretty on par for the course. I feel like usually it doesn't go well in the short program, but he magically lands in the free skate, which is one of the reasons he's always coming from behind. Just didn't get it all the way around and landed awkwardly, stepped out of it and fell, and he got an undercall. I thought he was lucky it wasn't downgraded. Everything else was great. The combo, the step sequence, the spins, really strong. Free skate, repeating, fix you. Is it fair that I'm just a little tired of this program? I'm sure part of it is just the overuse of fix you as music also. But I don't know. He's moved around the jump layout of his program multiple times. He's changed the choreographic sequence at times with this program. And I don't know if it's not that he doesn't feel comfortable with it. It just, I don't know. It feels a little tired for me. But in general, as far as the technical elements went, two-footed the quad loop, so at least he didn't fall on it. He had a lot of big jumps early, so he does that. Then he does triple axel combo, then two triple triples. Like I said, he's changed his jump layout a lot of different times. I feel like to maximize the success of the triple axel, which is sometimes good for him, sometimes not good for him. But what that leaves him with is 3 solo triples in the second half of the program, which isn't the best in terms of jump math. It might be the smart thing to do in terms of stamina, coming back from an injury. It might be a strategic thing. We'll see if this is the jump layout that he keeps through the season, or if he tries to add a combo to the back half or moves one of the triple axles around to get a few more points. In sixth place here was Cal Mura, and this was the absolute epitome of minning. He was second after the short program and finished 11th in the free skate to finish 6th overall. And unfortunately for him, it will not be another trip to Grand Prix final. This was really the worst case scenario for him, and it sucked because he was so good in the short program. The short program is like what we have been waiting to see from Cal. His jumps were brilliant. He got a level 4 on all 3 of his spins and his step sequence. And there were still some places to improve. Like the camel spin could be a little bit better, but he was finally over 100. He was so happy in the Kiss and Cry. I don't think we've ever seen that much emotion from him. And 2 of the judges actually had him in first over Yuma. And then the free skate comes, and it was just a complete 180 from what we had saw the day before. And it started right off the bat with his triple axel. It was supposed to be done in combination. He did land it, but he was unable to get the combo off. His next jump was intended to be a quad sal, and he tripled it. Then he had a hard fall on his quad toe, and then he doubled his second triple axel and did a double axel. Just a really rough start. And then after the quad toe fall, he actually managed to get a triple axel, double axel combo. But he clearly forgot that he had already done a double axel earlier from where he popped the triple axel, which meant that he had 3 triple axels, which you cannot do a jump 3 different times. So he got no credit for that double axel. The base value that could have been 16.1 was actually 12.43 because he lost the second double axel there. He did manage to get a triple flip, triple loop off later in the program, which, kind of like Yuma, didn't know that was really part of his repertoire, and also not really sure that's good for his injured hip. So I had a question after this performance. Was it just a flare-up of his injury that caused things to go awry here? Was it pressure from finally getting over 100 points, trying to get a win here and getting to Grand Prix final? Like, what exactly happened? I could not find any post-event quotes from him. I don't know if he talked to any English-speaking media or not, but definitely a bummer for him. I guess on the bright side, since he won't be at Grand Prix final, perhaps that gives him more time to potentially rest his injury, if that was at all a factor in his free skate here. In 7th place was Jason Brown. And his Lutzes were on in this competition, unlike at Skate Canada. Unfortunately, the triple axels were still not firing. In the short program, he two-footed and turned out of his triple axel, landed the triple Lutz in the triple Lutz triple toe combo, but then fell on the triple toe. Still got a standing ovation, which was totally warranted. I thought his footwork sequence was improved from Skate Canada. I thought it had better speed. He seemed more comfortable. The program overall feels very ambitious, but I still feel like if it's skated clean, it will be really strong. In the free skate, to Spiegel M. Spiegel, just nixed the triple axel, it seemed like, altogether, did a double axel instead, and then the second triple axel was popped into a single. Everything else was really good, though. He is one that does like a cartwheel coming out of one of his spins, which I think is an appropriate use of the cartwheel. It shows control coming out of the spin, as opposed to a lot of people who just throw a cartwheel in there just for the heck of it. Losing the triple axels cost him about 18 to 20 points, which, if done well, he'd have been near bronze. And then his last 2 jumping passes got undercalls, which also cost him about 8 points. So he'd be closer to 180 if cleaning some of those things up, which would be right around what his normal kind of ceiling is. I am not worried about Jason. Like, I feel like by nationals, he'll have the triple axel together and he'll be fine. I think it's fair to be a little disappointed after a 2-year hiatus from the Grand Prix to see him come back and not do as well. But the audiences, especially in Japan, really love him. And so I know that they got a treat seeing his programs, even if they didn't see him at his best. In 8th place here was Tomoki Hiwatashi of the US. Tomoki is one that I'm always surprised he gets international assignments, just because he's always so incredibly inconsistent. But here he is. They keep throwing him a bone. He trains in Japan under Mi Hamada and has since last summer, I believe, which is always a puzzling choice for me, because if we go back to 2019, Nobunari Oda filed a lawsuit against her for harassment, basically. And unfortunately for him, he lost that lawsuit and actually had to pay her back money. I think it was about 16,000, equivalent of about 16,000 US dollars, because she countersued him for defamation. But it is pretty well known that there's a lot of physical and verbal abuse that comes out of that camp. And so, why you would choose to go there when those types of things are very well out there is always super puzzling to me. So, I don't know if that's how he ended up being at NHK versus another Grand Prix because he already trains in Japan. That being said, it was a good competition for Tomoki in the short program. He's skating to Super Bad by James Brown, landed a quad toe and a triple axel, and triple lutz triple toe. He had 2 spins with negative GOE, and he did end up with an undercall on the quad toe, but really better than what I feel like I'm used to seeing from Tomoki. And then in the long program, he's in a like a tux, basically. So I thought he was skating to James Bond in the way that he was dressed, and said he's skating to a piece of music called Jimmy's Tux. Okay. Got an under on his quad toe, triple toe combo, but other than that, it was a clean performance, including a triple axel and a Lutz Euler triple Salchow combo in the second half. He was just beside himself when he finished. He was so thrilled. We'll see if this is a sign of things to come or if it's a fluke. I'm going to go with fluke, but we'll see. In 9th place was Vladimir Leventsev of Azerbaijan. And you got to love these ordinals. He was 6th in the short program and 8th in the free, but he finished 9th. In his short program, he was technically clean, and his spins are pretty good, but there's just a lot of arm flailing. And I feel like that's what men do when they lack a real connection with the music. It's just like, let me just throw my arms up in the air, and that's going to substitute for presentation. No, not really. And then in the long program, it's an already bad program. And then when you have a bad day at the office with the jumps on top of it, it just leads to a really unsatisfying 4 minutes. So he had a bad fall on his quad Salchow. He turned out of his quad toe. I will give him points for getting a quad toe, triple toe after the 2 mistakes on the quads before that. The ring silver bells music that's in the middle there is just super puzzling. I should know to expect at this point, but it's still puzzling to me. And Chris calls it a program of crossovers, which I think sums it up. In 10th place was Gabriele Frangipani of Italy, 8th in the short program, 9th in the free to finish 10th overall. In the short program, turned out of the quad toe, had a lot of traveling in his camel spin, and then his combo spin was also very slow, so not his best spinning day. Still, I thought this was the strongest outing of his short program so far this season. He seemed more in tune with it. I still find myself checking out just a little bit, so I don't know that it completely connects with the audience, but I did feel like it was a step in the right direction. In his free skate, he turned out of both of his quads, the toe and the Salchow, and he stepped out of his triple axel. That's how the program started. So didn't start off real sharp, and then late, like he does some combinations. They were very labored. The last spin he did, he looked like he fell out of it twice. Somehow he still managed to get the revolutions that he needed to get a level 4, but just not sharp overall. And both of his Grand Prix this season were a little underwhelming from him compared to the other 2 Italian men, because no, 4 Italian men. So because Grassel's back in the mix and Matteo's back in the mix. And so last year, Frangipani and Mimola basically went to Worlds by default because they were pretty much the only 2 left. But with Matteo and Daniel all doing much better than him here, I think it's going to be a really tough mountain for Gabriele to climb to get back to Worlds, because Nikolai Mimola has been doing better as well. Now, all of them can implode. None of them are the picture of consistency, but I do feel like that Frangipani hasn't had a really great competition this season, where at least last year he won Nepola, and unfortunately things just haven't come together so far this season, and he's running out of time. In 11th place was Mark Gornitsky of Israel in the short program. Just squeaked out the triple Lutz, but the other jumps were good. think it's a lovely program, a little boring. He does an unnecessary cartwheel both in the short program and in the free skate. I kind of feel like just break out the cartwheel for one of the programs, not both. In the free skate, he clearly has what is planned to be a triple axel, double axel combo. The first triple axel didn't work, doubled it. So he apparently decided to try to do a triple axel after that, which would have been the same base value. So I guess he was trying to salvage the combo, but it's just like, dude, what makes you think you're going to get a triple axel off after your double axel? Like when you botch the first jump, it's very hard to get the second one off. Now people do it, right? When they do like Cowrie is one of those. They'll do like a intended triple lutz double triple toe, and she'll just get a double lutz, but she'll get that triple toe off. Like we see that a lot of times. But in an axle combo, that feels like a very difficult thing to do a triple axle as your second jump if you're not Ilya Malinin. So clearly that didn't go well. I just didn't understand the thought process in trying to do that. It was like he popped the triple axle and then tried to tack on just too many mistakes. And when you don't have big tech elements, like he doesn't do a quad, then you've got to land what you have. And he didn't do that here. For me, he has one of the more random programs, especially with the last two music choices. And I just also feel like his shirt does not fit the music either, especially those last two music, with the rap. And like, I'm not mad at it, just, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It's just super random. And then in 12th place was Juhan Lim of Korea. He competed mostly in juniors last season. He actually won one of his junior Grand Prix. He did compete at Four Continents last year where he was 13th. And he actually won Dennis Tin Memorial in the fall of last season over Nika Agatsi. So he has a lot of really great potential. And in his short program, he did a nice triple axel to start, did a triple lutz, triple toe. It was a good program. And frankly, I thought it was technically appropriate. Yes, he was at the bottom of the standings, but he didn't come out and try to do a quad like we've seen Francis Pitot do or Lucas Broussard do. And I just felt like both of those skaters could take a page from Juhan and go out and skate cleanly and really try to build some confidence before you try to add a bunch of big jumps. And his free skate, he is another one that's skating to Interstellar. Landed his first triple axel, but fell on the second one. Just had some issues late as well. Hand down on the triple sal, fell on the triple flip. Definitely some things to build on for him, but it is his first senior season. Pamchenko Award was pretty easy for me for this event. Definitely going to give it to Tetsuya Tsuboi of Japan for the competition of his life, really skating well in both segments and getting on the podium at home. Grand Prix final standings for the men. We still just have one skater who's qualified for the final, and that is Ilya Malinin of the US. The next three skaters in the standings are not going to make it to Grand Prix final. That's Andrew Torgashev with 20 points, Koshiro Shimada with 18, and Cal Mura with 16. Now again, are there some scenarios where Andrew could get in with 20 points? Yes, sure. Has it ever happened? Has that skater gotten into the Grand Prix final with 20 points before? No, it has not. That's why I put them in italics if you're watching the video. If you look at the Grand Prix standings, they are second, third, and fourth, but none of those skaters are going to make it to Grand Prix final. So looking at that next batch of skaters who've just skated in one Grand Prix so far, we've got Adam Seo-Himfa, who has 15 points because he won France. Now, he has won Grand Prix France before and not done well at his second Grand Prix and not made it to Grand Prix final. That happened 2 years ago, but I certainly expect for him to make it. But of course, we have seen him, even in this Grand Prix season, implode in one of the segments of the competition. But he's in the best position to make the final. We've got Kevin Amos, Daniel Grassel, and Shunsato with 13. I should have Yuma there. I forgot to put Yuma in there. Yuma, having won here, also has 15 points with Adam. Then you've got Kevin Amos, Daniel Grassel, and Shunsato, who all have silver medals and have 13 points and have put themselves in a really good position to also qualify for Grand Prix final. And then those other ones looking in are going to be Junwan Cha and Tsutsua Tsuboi, who have bronze medals. And I'll also throw Nika Agazzi, Sota Yamamoto, and Mikhail Shadorov, who have fourth place finishes, because if they win the next Grand Prix, then that puts them in a position to potentially get in as well. So the men, no surprise, have a whole lot of people vying for 5 more spots and just 2 Grand Prix to do it. Coming up into Finlandia, our lineup here is Alexander Selevko of Estonia, Makar Suntsev, and Valter Virtanen of Finland, Kevin Amos in his second Grand Prix, and Daniel Grassel going back-to-back. So those two are likely going head-to-head for a potential Grand Prix spot. And Huma going back-to-back. We've also got Kozuki Tomono, Sota Yamamoto, Junwan Cha, Vladimir Simolov of Poland, Lucas Brichke of Switzerland, and Camden of the US. Dang! This one is stacked. This is really, really stacked, because you've got Yuma, who of course won this week. You've got 2 silver medal finishers with Kevin and Daniel, and you've got Junhua, who's a bronze medal finish. You've got Sota, who has won Grand Prix of the past and medaled at Grand Prix final. Jeez Louise, this is probably the most stacked Grand Prix that we have of the men this season. And Lucas certainly he has not skated well. He's been coming back from injury. I don't know that we're going to see him a lot better than what we saw a couple of weeks ago, but he definitely also has potential to get on the podium if he skates his best. Camden, my goodness. I mean, he needs to just do better than what he did last week in France. And then Selevko was in a podium position after a short program last week as well, before he imploded in. So this is another event that probably has a lot of potential for winning. If I'm going to make a prediction, I'm going to say Yuma for gold again. And I'm going to say Kevin and Junhua make up the podium. I'm going to say Junhua gets silver and Kevin gets bronze. We'll see. Should be interesting. All right, that completes my coverage of the men's event. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. You can find me on a multitude of socials: Instagram, Threads, X, Blue Sky, at iSkate Podcast, all the same. I've got one more recap that will come out in a day or so, and that is the women. In the meantime, enjoy the ones that I've got out. Hope you enjoy the skating this weekend, and have a great rest of your week.